Now, you may look at this cookbook from 1935 and think, well, it can't be that exciting. It's just an old cookbook from the 30s. But you'd be surprised at just how much history is hidden behind this simple cover. This is The Pastime Cooking. If you follow my channel, you know I've been cooking my way through our family's old collection of recipes. And today I pulled out this old cookbook called Dishes with Dash by the 1935 Study Club. Now, I don't know anything about this club, and there is absolutely nothing in this book to indicate what they were actually studying. And on first look, you might think, well, it's some kind of college organization. And that may well have been the case. I've tried to do some research on what the 1935 Study Club was. There's a lot of ads in it from Sudan, Texas, and I can't really find anything when I research it. But there is a lot of information about women's social clubs, and that's where these really become interesting. So around 1868, there were several organizations that formed up primarily, I believe, in New York and Boston, and they were formed by some very prominent, wealthier women for social causes, specifically around the movements of suffrage and anti-slavery. Now, if you like the TV show The Gilded Age, which I'm a big fan of course, because I love all things history, there's a character named Ward McAllister. Now, one of his actual cousins, because he's a real person at that time period, her name was Julia Ward Howe, and she was one of the first women to begin these social clubs. You may remember her from the Battle Hymn of the Republic, which she wrote. Now, I know in today's time, that doesn't seem like a big deal that these women were orchestrating these clubs. But you have to remember, prior to that, women mainly got together to cook or to sew, do needlepoint, quilt, things like that. So the fact that these women were forming these organizations to support their own social causes was revolutionary at the time. Actually, this movement kind of swept the United States and even to some extent the world by storm. These groups began to form all over the majority of the states. In fact, they grew to be so popular that at one time there was over 1 million women around 1910, 1920 in these types of organizations. Formed around a lot of issues, and you probably know about them today, but you may not think of them in the context in which they were formed. The Junior League was one such club. The Daughters of the American Revolution. In fact, the Daughters of the American Revolution is one of my favorites because they formed because men would not let them join their organization, the Sons of the Revolution. But the Daughters of the American Revolution became way more popular and more long-lasting. I think today there's around 33,000 members of the Sons of the Revolution, and there's almost 200,000 members of the Daughters of the Revolution. Social organizations were so big that around, I believe, 1898, there was actually the General Foundation of Women's Clubs that was formed, and it's still in existence today. I believe it's in Washington, D.C. Now, most of these organizations continued to grow and expand until around the time of the Great Depression. And then ever since that time, the membership have been declining across all of these organizations, and a lot of them are no longer in existence. I'm sure this 1935 study club is long since gone, and I doubt there's anybody out there who actually remembers them at all. I've made several of the recipes out of them tonight. I'm making the 6-layer dinner, and I'll let y'all know how that goes. I also made this orange cake, which if y'all watched the video a few days ago, that cake was amazing. We ate every last bite. Now, of all of y'all that are watching this, I sure hope one of you knows something about this club and maybe even owns this cookbook too. That would be an absolute dream to hear about. I love the idea of these social clubs. So I say bring the social clubs and this orange loaf cake past to present.